First, a WION exclusive. Opposition parties in India have derailed the entire winter session of Parliament so far over the government's currency demonetisation move. Defending the decision, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Nirmala Sitharaman told WION's Kartikeya Sharma that the problems people are facing due to cash shortage will be resolved soon. Take a listen in.
Demonetisation is in effect from 8th of November. The public has received the policy well, but the fact of the matter is that there is public inconvenience. On this and many other issues, I am joined by Commerce Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Madam, this policy of demonetisation was launched by the Prime Minister. Demonetisation has been tried before by many countries where it was not that successful, had its own repercussions. What makes your government so optimistic that demonetisation in India will work?
Well, I think it's introduced with the objective that high denomination notes of 500 and 1000 had reached the level of 86% of all our currencies. And that by itself was causing quite a few distortions in the economy. More than being circulated, they are being used for stacking up. Then counterfeits had also entered into the market. Third, there were enough reasons to believe that high denomination notes, being currency, being highly mobile, and therefore total volume in terms of value could be carried easily of larger, value than when you're talking of the lower denomination, which is an obvious statement. But because it was so, it moved to promote activities against the state and also was used for triggering violence and drug-related matters. Youth were getting very affected. So there were several reasons why the government had to take this big step. And comparing it with many of the countries, I would think is justifiable only when you're comparing it to see what is the cash to GDP ratio that is prevalent in economies which are considered developed as opposed to what is prevailing in India. If developed economies can live with just 4% of their GDP in currency, I would think India at 12, 13, 14% is not doing very well on it. So reducing the cash to GDP is an important step.
So you're saying that the experience of Russia or the experience of Myanmar is not comparable with the present economic situation which is there in India?
Yes.
But then many would say that is demonetization the only route to eradicate black money from the economy?
Not at all. And as you would observe, from the time this government has come in, not just this demonetization step, but several steps have been taken in order to contain black money. In fact, get black money which has been stashed elsewhere. So agreement on double taxation avoidance have been made with countries where predominantly Indians held their money. And also a scheme was announced, the income disclosure scheme, which ended on 30th September, whereby people who were holding income for which tax had not been paid were asked to disclose it, pay a penalty. It wasn't an amnesty scheme. You pay a penalty and then regularize what they had held. And then that although that meant both money and also immobile property, you had immobile properties being declared, maybe some money was declared, but clearly cash being held was something which one had to target. And moreover, other than these steps, the government has also been following the directions of the special investigation team which has been set up, and that was one of the first decisions, in fact, indeed the first decision of this government, to form the special investigation team to look at ways and means of getting the black money. So it is not as if that this government is going on its own set path. Although we are mandated, we've been voted in for getting black money back, other than many other promises which have been given. It's also something which the SIT works together with the government, directs the government reports back to the SIT, and therefore I would think this step of the government is also well reported as one of the major steps that we're taking, and the SIT is seized of it.
The public inconvenience is a fact which cannot be denied. But there are also sectors within economy which are very, very distressed. For example, the medium scale industries, the small scale industries, the textile, the garment sectors. What steps has the government taken to ameliorate the problems which these sectors are witnessing?
Two things. What are the kind of problems that we are facing? Insufficient availability of currency. Why is that needed? Because people are still paying wages with cash. Who are these people getting paid with cash? Apparently, migrant workers and semi-skilled workers. Now, therefore, is this government doing this major step without a thought as to what is happening and as to what is going on? No, the government is sensitive. But did it do this without much preparation in this matter which we are talking about? Not at all. 2 years before.
That's the charge of the opposition.
No. But let it be anybody's charge. I am answering it from the point of view of, did this government remain indifferent, or did it not think about any inconvenience that might occur because of want of more currency? I am answering it one step after the other by asking you questions. Eventually, what was the cash needed for? For paying migrant workers apparently, for paying unskilled workers apparently, in other words, for paying people without bank accounts, for paying people in cash who did not have an institutional arrangement otherwise. Why would that situation be so prey? Hasn't this government in the last 2 years launched the Jan Dhan scheme and went on a mission mode? If the government could reach out to every household and say, not just the household, but whoever is the adult there, would you please hold an account, even if it's zero balance? Would you please get a RuPay card after a few months of opening the account? Did the government have not moved on the DBT line in giving pensions or gas and other benefits entitlements? The government is definitely doing all this. And for us to be now told, oh no, we don't have workers with bank accounts and so we need currency. Yes, I understand. Even now I will have to, as government, respond to a situation. But to say that, oh my God, the government has launched it without much preparation, I want to ask all those employees, are you doing these workers any favor by not giving them an account? And that is the reason why, when you rightly intervene to say opposition is asking you these questions, I want to ask, how could the left parties join in support of the rest of the opposition which is standing against this major step? Wouldn't the rights of the workers be better established if the accounts receive the wages?
I understand the point you're making. Obviously, every government receives legacy. Vajpayee government inherited a legacy. Manmohan Singh's government inherited a legacy from Vajpayee's government. Your government inherited the legacy of Manmohan Singh's government. Like, for example, if you go through the data, madam, the rural banking penetration in India, if the statistics which are available officially is Madhya Pradesh, Odisha is 44%, Bihar, Assam is 46%. So how do you intend to reach the poor you are talking about in terms of transferring the economy from cash to credit? Because anyhow, the rural banking, the figures which are there available to us is so low.
But the rural banking issue is not something the government is unaware of. It is improving. You're looking at only the brick and mortar presence of banks, which very well is taken as a statistic. But today, because of technology, and even when we launched Jan Dhan, we constantly reminded that even in villages and panchayats where there are no bank present, the brick and mortar type, the bank mitras would reach the village at least 2 times in a week, if I remember the data correct, and with his machine in his hand would dispense cash and also take anything that they would want to put into their account. And a smart, non-smartphone, an ordinary phone in the hand of the villager would still receive a SMS in his language to say that money has been credited or debited accordingly. So there was no need. And another important thing that we miss out on, the presence of rural banks may be not so much, but the presence of the post offices, which are 1,30,000, if I know right the data, 1,25,000. And they were also given the cash receiving and payment function. Ravi Shankar Prasad, the minister, telecom, repeats in every one of the interviews rightly that the common service centers that he's established in many of the rural areas are also functioning, digitally enabling people and providing services which are otherwise provided by brick and mortar banks.
You have used the word digital. There is no doubt about the fact that a digital economy or the digital commerce is the future, and digital commerce is linked with, is part and parcel of the government's larger approach towards demonetization, from cash to credit. But then when we talk about digital commerce, it has to be, and it must be, married to internet, broadband, which again has to be married to an electricity infrastructure. In your opinion, do you think that we have those wherewithals in rural areas to absorb this shock of demonetization, marriage of net with electricity and proper infrastructure, where economy moves from cash to credit?
Well, that is where, whilst equally pushing for POS machines or checkbooks or such facilities as which was extended by the UPI, United Payment Interface, all of which depend on either smartphones or digital connectivity, whilst we equally push on them, we are also pushing on an SMS-based transfer of money, which is through the USSD scheme, which does not require anything except for you to go with a hashtag number given, a number followed by a hashtag, and you would register your phone onto that, and all transactions can be enabled by an SMS. I'm not saying, although here the dependence of digital connectivity is not required, I'm not suggesting that it is easy even for this. But all over the country today, with the help of teams which are coming out of Niti Aayog and the various ministries, all of us are pushing the electronic, not necessarily digital, internet-based, connectivity-based, not necessarily that, ordinary SMS. For instance, I'm glad to say that the tea plantation workers, who are, mind you, the farthest, not so reachable areas of the country, bordering with Bhutan, bordering with Nepal, parts, villages, and in the estates where you really don't have the panchayat's benefits reaching them. We have been pushing on the Jan Dhan so that directly wages can be put in the account. And I am assured by the tea board, for instance, so with the coffee board, so with the other boards which we are dealing with, from 1st January, the salaries, the wages will be paid into people's accounts.
Madam, how do you account for the criticism which has taken place in various journals? Various economists have come out that the job market has shrunk, people have become jobless, GDP is going to shrink. What makes you so positive despite so much of write-up by critical economists, people in academia, that demonetization will work? And do you agree with the fact that the critiques have argued that the GDP will shrink?
With all due respects to the critics, I want to ask them how they arrived at the figures. Is it all ready for you to get the data? The process is still on. Till December 30th, people are expected to credit into their accounts the 500 and thousands that they have. The disruption, if anything, happened between the 10th of December and 18th of December, after which in phases, the difficulty continues in some degree. I'm not wiping it all away. After the 10th, after the 18th, cash is going to different places. Probably not in a structured manner, but it is reaching. So any disruption in production, particularly in those sectors where it is labor intensive, and assuming that they don't have an account, and therefore the cash crunch affecting them, would have happened in those 10 days, not later. I've met with the Export Promotion Council people, and they didn't voice a concern of people are already getting thrown out of their jobs. Where are they getting the data from? Where is the data arriving that From where is the data arriving? That experts are already concluding that the GDP is going to be affected, so and so figure. It's too early. You had the government chief statistician, Mr. Anand, give yesterday and today elaborate interviews where he said data is still awaited. Not till end of middle of June 2017 are you going to get the annual data for the economy's growth. Already people are having data about this quarter. Okay. I wonder from where they get the data.
Okay, even if I have to take your point, the whole demonetization had a political fallout. The GST Council's chairman, Mr. Mitra, said that demonetization is like a double whammy and it's going to affect the GST rollout. What do you have to say on that?
Well, the GST Council is meeting today and the Finance Minister is engaged with them. The GST in its course has gone through a lot of ups and downs. But of late, people, because they realize the benefit for the entire country if India becomes a unified single market, must realize, and I'm sure the GST Council will be using its considerations favorably, because it's not done for any one party, it is done for the country.
Before I conclude this interview, I have two questions for you, Nirmala ji. First, the opposition's main charge has been that this scheme was launched without preparing the basic infrastructure, for example, calibration of the ATM machine, the distribution, the liquidity part. Mr. Jaitley today has said that, the currency printing is it's a process which takes a lot of time. So how do you contend this charge that the scheme was launched without preparation, as opposition said?
Well, any scheme of this dimension, this scale, this magnitude, cannot really be preparing till the last man. Ideally, if it is possible, it will be great. But of course, preparation happens. We are sensitive to the fact that people are facing discomfort, people are put to difficulty. And that is the reason why on almost a daily basis, the Department of Economic Affairs is coming up with responses from where we have heard difficulty, they are responding to it. So I think So
you don't call it tweaking, you are calling the daily changes as responses?
Obviously.
Okay.
Obviously, because the responses are specific to difficulties that we've heard.
Okay.
And that shall continue, because we want, the example is when people said, oh, farmers are going to have difficulty, Rabi sowing season is on, how could you do it? You should reach more currency to the villages through the cooperative banks and so on. The central cooperatives through NABARD were to receive 21,000 crores was a decision taken early last week in response to the call which came from rural areas. Farmers could buy their seed with the old 500 rupee note. Was a decision taken in response to a lot of people who said farmers will not be able to buy their seeds otherwise. So it is in response that the decisions are being taken after due review meetings.
And lastly, what is the estimate?
But one point which I would want to add in response to your last question is, opposition is also not sure what they want to say on this. Each day they seem to change the charge. One day they say you're putting people to inconvenience. The next day they say, no, there is anger among people. Where is the anger? People are saying, yes, inconvenience, but we are with the government. And then the next day they say the Prime Minister should be in the house. Fourth day they say the Prime Minister should apologize. Prime Minister comes to the house, they would still say, no, the Prime Minister is not available. So based on opposition parties' allegation, you should then keep changing the allegations and put it forward to me to say, would you want to respond to that? Because opposition's charges are changing by the day.
Okay. And lastly, coming back to my question, what is the estimate of the Commerce Ministry? What is the estimate of the government that till what time you have set for yourself for the liquidity in the market to resume? Because people do want to know when they would be coming back to their normal rhythm of economic life. Is there an estimate, madam, in the mind of the government?
Well, the easing out is happening even as we speak. More currency is reaching different parts of the country. Sometime in response to the difficulties voiced, more currency is being rushed to some parts because they should be attended to. The Prime Minister has been very clearly saying, let's give ourselves some time, the 50 days that he spoke about. So I think that explains clearly that that's how easing out is going to happen. It is not, the situation is not as dire as it was on the 10th or the 18th. And therefore, I think the easing out is happening as we talk.
Thank you for making time for us.
You're welcome.